Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, The Bearded Hermit, and today I'm going to show you how I made a root cellar start to finish. I'm walking back here to the site of where I'm building my A-frame, and I decided to build the root cellar underneath the house foundation, and then I could access it through a trap door in the kitchen floor. It's pretty well covered in snow right now, but trust me, there's a root cellar under there.
After finding the perfect place in the woods to build my A-frame cabin and cutting down a few trees, the next step was to dig out some small stumps and roots and level the ground as best I could. The land slopes downhill a little to the south, but this is not a problem since my A-frame foundation will be on posts and I'll have a crawl space. Using this tractor with a front bucket and rear blade makes this work go fast. Next, I measure out the footprint of the cabin and set stakes, making sure the lengths of the diagonals are equal to have a perfectly square foundation. I then mark out with paint every 4 feet where a post will be dug. All these steps are necessary because the root cellar must line up with the corner of the A-frame. A neighbor and good friend of mine lent me his backhoe. This was a lifesaver. I was not looking forward to digging out a few yards of dirt by hand. My neighbor breaks through the roots and shows me how to use the backhoe. And for the rest of the day, I'm digging a 12-foot by 10-foot hole. After a while, I get the hang of it and the work goes fast. In the next days, there's still a lot of hand shoveling to do, so I get to it. Once you break through a little bit of soil and roots at the top, there's about 2 feet of soft, reddish clay to dig through. And then you hit sand. Very easy to dig compared to many other places in the country, but it's still hard work. My goal was to make this root cellar 5 to 6 feet deep in the ground. The deeper it gets, the more dirt I can pile on top to help insulate against freezing. I ended up getting about 5 feet deep. These last few weeks of summer were very hot, and I do not do well in the heat. Every day when I come out to dig, there would be more toads and frogs in the hole. I keep tossing them out, but they just don't learn their lesson. But I keep digging in line with my stakes to make sure the root cellar stays in line with the corner of the cabin. Just as I was finishing up the digging, a bunch of sand let loose from the north side of the hole. I was looking forward to ending my night, but it was not in the cards for me. I had another 30 minutes of digging to clean up the mess.
I made this ladder to go down into the root cellar. So let's take a climb down there and check it out.
Once the hole was deep enough and cleaned out, next thing to do was drill the post holes. I bought this auger with a 10-inch drill, and it makes short work of this sand. I drop in the 6x6 green posts and add cement after putting 2 braces on and checking for level. I line up all these posts on my overhead string to make sure they stay straight with the outside future wall of the cabin. I need to confess, a 14-foot long 6x6 green post is about all I can handle to stand them up in the hole. But I use a little trick. To avoid collapsing sand back into the hole, I put a 4-foot long stick into the back side of the hole. And when the post gets stood up, it slides down the stick and doesn't dump any sand into the hole. I finished putting in the last of the posts, 8 posts in all to make the shape of the root cellar.
The size of this root cellar is 8 feet by 10 feet. Center, but these 4 corner posts, 1, 2, 3, and 4, they go up all the way to make the subfloor foundation of the house above it. So everything's all one piece in these posts. I thought that would give it some extra stability.
I decided to use 2x8 green boards to make the walls. They go on the outside of the posts, so the pressure of the dirt pushes them into the post. And with the posts 4 feet further into the ground, I feel like this was a strong enough design. I'm using 3.5-inch construction screws to put everything together. With the west wall finished, I move on to the east wall. Honestly, at this point, it looks like I'm making a World War I trench. But I promise you, it's a root cellar. When working alone, clamps are your best friend. I use them for everything when I need an extra hand. The south wall goes up just as fast as the others. I make a center beam out of two 2x8s to support the weight of the roof. When I started the north wall, I'm reminded of something my mother told me. She came out to see my progress and she commented, "Remember to bring the ladder into the hole with you or you won't be able to get out." In the moment, I had laughed at her words, but when the time came, I almost forgot. That would have really been embarrassing. The next step is to build the roof. I don't need these two posts to be so high, so they get cut off. And I start laying green 2x8s over the beams. A few of these boards are bowed, but all they need is a little leverage, and I get screws into them to hold them down. I leave the front corner open for the access door. Using this power station out in the woods is a game changer. It runs my electric saw and other power tools. It charges my drill batteries, and it can run lights if I'm out working after dark. If you are doing any projects off-grid, I can't recommend using a power station enough. Here, I'm adding some blocking to carry the weight of the roof before all the dirt gets thrown on. The roof opening needs to be boxed in. And I cut a straight line on all the ends of the roof boards so the last board can go on.
Just like the roof, the walls here are green 2x8s with 1-inch insulating foam board behind it. That foam board acts as insulation, but also it acts as a moisture barrier. It separates the water and the dirt from actually coming in contact with the wood. Even though it's green, I don't want any problems with rotting. And you can see the ceiling here is just some 2x6s laid flat, insulation board above it, and then I buried it in about 5 inches of sand. I do have room to stand up in here. I'm about 5'9" and I have a couple inches to the ceiling, so that's about a 6-foot ceiling. I do, however, have to duck for this beam or I will crack my head open.
The next step is to cover the walls in 1-inch foam board insulation. With the cold winters in the UP of Michigan, the ground freezes deep, so I want to make sure this root cellar stays above 32 degrees. It's easy to install with nails and easy to cut with a utility knife. This insulation should also help to keep the walls dry and keep the sand from coming through the cracks in the boards. Time to backfill around the root cellar and cover the roof. I'm using the tractor to get all the piles of dirt I can reach. But a lot of this work will need to be done the old-fashioned way, with a shovel and rake. I went back to the tractor when I realized how much dirt had to be moved. But to get around the corner, a few trees needed to be removed. I know all this dirt and sand is loose from the first time I moved it, but trust me, it's getting old fast. So I make room and get the tractor on the back side of the root cellar to save my back. It really did make fast work of that dirt. Just a little more raking and shoveling, and it's all done. I had forgot about my walking plank. I remove it and fill it in. At this point, there's just a few finishing touches to finish everything on the root cellar.
So I haven't had a chance to put a door on it, and it's snowing in here, so it is pretty cold, but once I get the door in and proper ventilation in here, this should act like a very good root cellar. It should keep everything cool, but not frozen. The floor is just a sand floor, and when I read up on making a root cellar, they said that you need the moisture to come up through the floor to bring the heat up. And so I'm just going to leave it a sand floor in here.
After I built the subfloor of the A-frame, this gap needed to be enclosed to cover up the crawl space. Just a few green 2x6s and the job is done. Next, I build a little platform for the ladder to sit on. I use cut off green posts from making the cabin foundation and a few 2x6s. I made this ladder in my workshop. It has shallow dados cut on angles for each step to fit in, and screws in the ends to hold each step in place. I then notched out some 2x8s to make shelves.
And so I just finished installing some of these shelves here, so I can be putting all sorts of canned food, dehydrated food, plenty of room to store if you want to buy survival packs or any sort of supplies. They can be kept down here. I'm thinking of maybe putting a table right here in the middle. I might do some butchering down here. I don't know. If I decide to go deer hunting, maybe I'll hang the deer down here because it's going to stay, you know, it's going to stay pretty cool down here, like refrigerator temperatures. So it would be a good place to do it. Also, this corner here, I haven't put any shelving because right here, directly above this space right here, is going to be the kitchen sink. And I plan on putting a well pipe straight down into the ground right here. And that pipe will go through the root cellar here, through the crawl space, right up through the kitchen cabinet, right into the sink. So I'll be able to pump water right into the kitchen sink. Well, that's about it. This was a lot of work, but I think, you know, it'll last me the rest of my life. Saving money on refrigeration and extra storage, and even in the summertime it stays about 65 degrees down here. So I haven't planned any air conditioning for my A-frame cabin, but if I get a 90-degree day or above, you know, come down here, 65 degrees, chill out in the cool.
And there you have it, one completed root cellar that can also double as a storm shelter. It was a lot of hard work, but also a lot of fun.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Check back soon for more videos. I'm still building the A-frame house, and more videos will be coming.